A student can understand every word a teacher or a tutor says and still be unable to solve a problem alone. That can be incredibly confusing and frustrating for parents. You may watch someone explain a chemistry problem to your student. Your student nods and they follow every step. They may even say, "Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. I totally get it now." Then the next day, they sit down with a slightly different problem and have no idea where to even begin. It can look like they weren't even paying attention, but they may have been paying very close attention. The problem is that following someone else's thinking is different from producing the thinking yourself. When an expert explains a problem, the expert has already done many of the hardest parts for them. See, they recognize what kind of problem it was. They decided which information mattered. They chose the right equation or relationship. They organized the steps. They knew what to ignore. See, the student may understand each step after it's been chosen for them, but that does not prove that they could have chosen those steps alone. This creates what I call the fluency illusion. The explanation feels smooth. The examples look familiar. The student recognizes what the tutor is doing. And that feeling of familiarity can be mistaken for mastery. But chemistry tests don't ask what solution looks familiar. They ask the student to begin with a blank page and decide, what kind of problem is this? What is it asking me to find? What information matters? What relationship should I use? What do I do first? That gap can be especially difficult for students with ADHD. While someone's explaining, the structure is already being provided. The student's attention is being guided. The next step is immediately visible. There is feedback for every few seconds. But when the student is alone, all of that external structure disappears. Now they have to create the structure themselves. They have to hold the problem in working memory, organize several possibilities, resist distractions, and choose which direction without knowing for certain that it's right. That's a completely different task. This is why a student may look successful during tutoring, but still freeze on a test. It's also why completing homework with help does not always build independence. The solution isn't to stop explaining things. Students need clear explanations, for sure. But the explanations must eventually hand the thinking back to the student. A useful learning sequence looks like this. First, I show the student how one part works. Then we work through part of a problem together. Then the student finishes the next step. Finally, they solve a similar problem without help. That last part really matters. If the student never has to retrieve the method, choose the first step, and work through the uncertainty alone, we still don't know whether the learning belongs to them or not. So after an explanation, I like to ask, can you explain why that step worked? What clue told us to use that relationship? What would you do first if the numbers changed? Can you solve a similar problem without me leading you? That's where the real confidence comes from. Not from hearing, did you understand this? Yeah, I understood it. But did you really? But from experiencing, I figured out what to do on my own. So when your student says, I understand it, when someone explains it, but I can't do it myself, believe them. That sentence tells us something important. They may not need another explanation. They may need guided practice. That slowly removes the support that they can start, organize, and recover independently. In the next lesson, we'll look at why getting the homework finished is not always the same thing as learning.